Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Blatherwick, and I'm the Parliamentary Secretary for Gender Equity. I'm honored to join you from the territory of the Lekwungen peoples and the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. I would also like to acknowledge all of you that have joined today. I would also like to extend a very special and heartfelt welcome to Elder Marianne Thomas from the Esquimalt Nation, who will be offering a welcome to us.
I'm short. It's okay. Hi, Squachel. Nesne is Salik from Skometl. My name is Marianne Thomas from Esquimalt Nation. I welcome each and every one of you to Songhees and Esquimalt territory. Because every time when I go somewhere, I always ask permission to walk on people's land. Because, it's just like if I walk into your yard, your field, without asking, you'd be upset. That's how the ancestors are. And today is a very special day for all our sisters that didn't make it back home. Because you know what? We're standing here amongst our sisters that didn't make it home. But they're in great comfort with our elders, because our elders never let anyone be alone. They always took them under their wing and gave them the snow oil, the teaching. Didn't judge, just welcomed them for who they are and where they came from. In life, I'm really grateful for each and every one of you because, we need each other. We need to learn with each other. Because, before I went into this home, I asked the ancestor, can I come in? Because I'm here to offer live words, not empty words, not hateful words, no judgmental words of really alive. Because, I respect each and every one of you that went through whatever you went through in life. For myself, when I went through the residential school, my father Tulhuamkan says, you don't let that be alive. You kill it by forgiving. Forgiving doesn't mean it's okay, you're taking control who you're going to let in your space. So the great teachers of all the ancestors helped me. And I had to do it, really meaningful, do it. Because I hated the white people for all what I've went through in school. Put my head in a toilet bowl, cut my hair really short like a boy. Shame. My father says, don't get mad, your hair can grow. Now you're away from school. He says, you go find a place to sleep and you go pick up that little girl that's stuck in the boarding school. I had to go get myself. It took me a long time to thaw out, because when I picked her up from that bed, I shivered for a long time because I left her there for too many years. And I could be proudly thanking my father to teach me not to hate, not to get mad, because when you get mad, we're poisoning our own system. There is a lady that, she woke up mad, evenings she was mad, supper time she was mad. My father says, you see that Slaney? When she gets sick, she's really going to be sick. She's going to be really sick. And I went to see her, and she told me where to go. She was upset. But I went to the daughter, and I said, you better get mommy to the doctor to get checked out. brought her up there, got the ambulance straight up to Jubilee, and straight into the operating room. Opened her up in 75, her intestines were black. That's from her being mad. That's why don't get mad over small, stupid things. We have a mouth to talk and smooth things out. All these things, all I talk about is what I experienced. And I don't hate white people anymore. Because it's not all the people that harmed me and put my head in the toilet bowl. And I have this life in having friends like you today. Because we're not here by ourselves. All the sisters that didn't come back are here in good hands with the people. Because our people didn't push anybody away. If they needed somebody, their comfort arms were there. So today I just wanted to share that our sisters are not by themselves. Because, you know, we're lucky that we can have a burning to feed them, send them clothes, send them food. This is what we do every 4 years for our people. We have a way of looking after our deceased. But the good memories that we keep alive. So I just really wanted to thank you and let me share a few things with you. Titel siam saaf men, taelt namet in Esquire. Deem it now for the slack and for the steerwheel. You know, as with the book wet to go gum to squalwins imish in this low at Tummock. Now awesome to the steerwheel. Took the high cone for their shell imish to us low at Tummock. I just ask the Creator to bless each and every one of you, to give you the strength that you need to keep on, because we're not people that will fall. We get up and we keep going because we need each other. And I ask the Creator to bless the road that you walk on, clear it out, have that light shining on those roads that you challenge each day. And asking the Salelach, you know, asking the old people, turn your hurt into prayers. Because, you know, no matter where we go, we don't go to church. Our church is everywhere we are, especially we face the day. Pray for the day, pray for tomorrow. When the sunset goes down, we pray for tomorrow. Because our job with our life, we got to be honest, and we have to love one another, help one another, forgive one another. Because the land is so much alive, the trees are alive, the water is so much alive, the breeze. We're lucky with everything that we're surrounded with. But we got to slow down and take a look at the beauty. Haich Gasim.
Thank you, Elder Marianne. Every time you speak, I feel that I become a little bit more wise and a little bit more compassionate. Today we mark the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. We honor and remember the 14 women who were murdered at École Polytechnique in Montreal on December 6, 1989. 14 young lives cut short never to grow into their futures and change the world with their talents and ambitions. We grieve with their families, with their friends, and all those who hold this day in their hearts. We are also here to condemn every act of gender-based violence. I'd like to welcome Minister Brenda Bailey to say a few words.
Thank you very much, and I too want to thank Elder Thomas for her always powerful and generous sage words. Thank you for welcoming us to the territory, and thank you for your warmth and your generosity and your wisdom and starting us in a good way. So I wanted to take a chance to share my personal story about living in Montreal in 1989. And I think in order to do that, I have to admit my age a bit. I'm an older generation of feminist than many of the people here. And I want to use that to kind of place where we were December 6, 1989. The 60s and 70s had really seen some great advancements for women's rights and many other human rights movement forward. The 80s were a time of change in a different direction. It was about glamour, and it was about money, and it was about preppiness, and many of the rights that had been hard fought for were slipping backwards. We're in a time like that again now. And as a young student from Nanaimo who was studying in Montreal, I was a second-year student. There were a lot of sexual assaults that were happening in the what we called the ghetto, the student ghetto, where the students lived in inexpensive places. And the women of McGill became very active on addressing the sexual assault crisis that was happening. And I became very active in that and became a spokesperson. And I share that because it connected me to the feminist movement in Montreal, both French-speaking and English-speaking, in that this crisis was something we were all experiencing in that city at that time. And we were organizing Take Back the Night marches, and we were organizing against some really ugly things that were happening on campuses. There were a number of date rapes where the men stayed and the women left. This still happens. What happened on December 6th, though, was an entirely different scale. I can share with you that I had come home from a hard day at university, and I lived in the Plateau, which is an area sort of between McGill and École Polytechnique, Université de Montréal. And I heard so many sirens. Just so many sirens, and it felt like they were coming from every direction. It felt like the apocalypse. It was just so loud and so intense and went on for so long. And of course, immediately, we didn't have cell phones then, right? This is 89. Wanted to understand what was happening, and so turned on the TV and started to try to take in the unbelievable scale of the attack that was occurring. Now, there was a long period of time, like right now, we all kind of know what happened. But we didn't know for quite a long time in Montreal. We didn't know how many attackers there were. We didn't know how many people were killed. We didn't know who else was going to be killed. And we didn't know that someone had walked into a classroom and asked the men to leave and opened fire on the women. That night, we all poured into the grounds at École Polytechnique, people from everywhere. The women's movement in Montreal, so many students from McGill and all the other universities, so many students, of course, from Université de Montréal. It was about minus 35 degrees. It's a bit chilly right now. It's a lot colder there. And we stayed up most of the night, just holding each other and weeping, as we started to understand that this was femicide. We didn't have that word then, but we felt it. We all knew that just for being women, these women were murdered. And it also landed in a way that was new for us, which was we started to truly understand the connection between all the other violences we had both experienced and had been leading the fight against, that this was all the same thing. And we hadn't ever really said that before. That hadn't really ever been spoken out loudly. A number of things happened after December 6th. There was a very strong effort to brand this the act of a madman. We still see this now when we see situations where women are harmed, where misogyny is at play. We still see it, that there's a desire to not allow the true words the light of day. It's very dangerous. There was also a list, and we didn't know who was on that list. It was kept quiet. And the women's movement in Montreal, we all thought we were on that list. We didn't know who was and who wasn't. We didn't know if there were other attackers. We all were terrified. There was a CBC live broadcast a few days later, maybe a week later, and they invited the leadership of the women's community in Montreal to come and participate. And survivors from École Polytechnique were also there. They wouldn't tell us where the event was being held because of security. It was so unknown whether there would be a gunman there. We didn't know whether this gunman had acted by himself or whether there were other attacks coming. And at that CBC event, the lights went out. And women started to dive under their chairs. The woman next to me had been shot in the leg on December 6th and hid under my legs. It was horrific. But that was the level of fear that stayed in the community for quite some time. And it took a long time to start to dissipate. It's also the level of fear that many women live with every day in their own lives. And we started to understand that connection also. I think it's really important, the fight that we have to continue to talk about this event and understand its place in Canadian history is very key as people push back against this. At the time that this attack occurred, we didn't really have the language to talk about the incel movement. But in that movement, the person who did this attack, whose name I refuse to say, is celebrated as a hero today. The pushback that is happening in the women's movement is very real and very concerning. And it's really important that we continue this work with newfound vigor. I know that my place of privilege as a white woman, my experience with violence is different than the experience of violence that many women I know, women who are Indigenous, women who are racialized, women who live with disabilities experience. And even in my own life, as a woman of privilege, I have experienced much violence. And I have experienced, as a politician, terrible death threats. These things are all the same thing. This misogyny is all the same misogyny. And we have to talk about that more. And we have to continue, all of us, to take action against this horrific misogyny that continues to thrive in our culture. And I really want to thank the people that are here, because I know, looking around me, these are the people doing that work. We are the people doing that work, and so many more. I look at people who are leaders, who are doing incredible things in their community. I'm so grateful. It's unbelievably important that we continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Bailey. I would also like to welcome Nora Keegan, who is a third-year mechanical engineering student from UVic and chair of the Conference on Diversity in Engineering 2026.
Last year in the fall, I excitedly walked into one of my classes, a computer science class, eager to learn a new programming language and see my friends that I hadn't seen all summer. In that first lecture, I was sexually harassed. That was the last time I went to that class. The rest of the semester, I taught myself the material and watched videos online, keeping up with assignments and exams. While I told myself that I wasn't going to class because I could learn on my own time, the real reason that I didn't want to admit was that I didn't go back to that class because of that incident. Someone in the class sat next to me, and in the middle of the lecture put his hands in his pants and started touching himself, with his head fully turned, staring at me the entire time. I can still remember the sounds of him groaning and how I felt frozen with fear. In the moment, I remember not wanting to cause a disruption, so I kept my head down, tried to block it out, and kept taking notes. I only thought of it as something odd, and only when I told a friend and she went completely silent, not even an outrage outburst, just complete silence, and she looked at me and very softly said, "Nora, that was sexual harassment," did I start to realize what had happened to me. After I told a few other friends and they had that same reaction, complete silence, shock, and immediate empathy, I realized the severity of the situation. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today to reflect on violence against women and honor the lives of the 14 incredible women whose lives were unrightfully stolen from them. While today marks a tragedy, it is also a hopeful day to remind us that we have the power to create a future, a more equitable future, not just for us in engineering, but for women everywhere. My name is Nora Keegan, and I am a student at UVic studying mechanical engineering. I am the current chair of the Conference on Diversity in Engineering, a national event for students to come together to share experiences and develop their skills. I am deeply honored to have the opportunity to speak here today. While it has been 36 years since the Polytechnique shooting, violence against women is still ongoing. Violence can take many forms, and it is often the everyday actions that are overlooked but can still be harmful. I was harassed when I was sitting around other people in the middle of the day at school, which is supposed to be a safe place, just trying to learn. Since I was young, I've been reading books about women's rights, watching documentaries, and followed the Me Too movement so that I could understand the signs of violence around me in the hopes to prevent it one day happening to myself and others. However, in the moment and after, I still wasn't able to recognize it on my own. This is not just about my story. This is about the reality that many women face on a daily basis. I haven't talked to a single one of my friends that are women that haven't been harassed or assaulted at some point in their life through one form or another. If you have never been worried when you had a late lab time about your safety on your commute back at night, never wondered when taking a co-op offer if the work visits will be safe, and never considered missing class simply because you didn't feel safe in lecture, normally I would call you lucky. But why should being safe, a fundamental right, be considered lucky and not just the baseline? Many people often talk about the importance of inspiring young women to enter the engineering profession. But I believe that we cannot consider this problem as solved when we deem that enough women are graduating with their iron rings. Women will not be equal unless there is space for them to exist. Solely encouraging a woman to enter a male-dominated field is not sufficient enough to prevent gender-based violence. We shouldn't just want women entering the field. We want them staying and succeeding. This responsibility does not solely lie on women and gender minorities. While I am here today speaking to you as a woman about the issues that women in engineering face, we cannot fix this alone. Everyone, especially men and those in positions of power, must step forward and take action to ensure that we are actively making our communities a more welcoming and safe space. I call on everyone to work towards a future where gender equity is not only tolerated, but celebrated, and where everyone feels safe to exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. We come together for victims and survivors, and for all those who are working to end violence and support those who have been harmed. And recognize today's generation of students, while never forgetting the 14 women who are no longer here. Geneviève Bergeron, Hélène Calgan, Nathalie Croteau, Barbara Degnaud, Anne-Marie Edouard, Maude Haviernac, Marie Lagenière, Marie Leclerc, Anne-Marie Lemay, Sonia Pelletier, Barbara Kluchnik-Vidovejevich, Michel Richard, Hanny Saint-Arnaud, Hanny Turcotte. I'd like to ask everyone to join me for 1 minute of silence. Thank you. I want to thank the speakers for their words about protecting all people from violence and changing the way that we interact in public spaces to celebrate inclusion. And I want to recognize Minister Bailey's words about the incidents and the transgressions that led up to that final act of violence. Because the tide of rage is not just about physically harming women. It is about killing the things in society that are perceived as feminine: compassion, kindness, thoughtfulness, gentleness, so that crimes like this are normalized and celebrated. Please reach out to those in your community and those you care about, and make sure that the things that bring us together, the things that lead us to see the humanity in each other, that we're celebrating them together in memory of the 14 women who cannot be here today, and every person who has experienced these harms. And I want to thank all of you for being here, for your presence, for being together in this space to honor this day and the memory of these women, and all women, girls, and gender diverse people whom we have lost and who have been harmed by violence. Ending gender-based violence everywhere it occurs will take all of us, all the strength, and all the love that we have on our campuses, in our workplaces, in our communities, and within our families. Thank you, everyone, for gathering here today.